I am anger. When released, I take control. I become your master. I will destroy your enemies and your friends. I will destroy you. I override good sense. I ignore relationships. And when I can't find a target, I turn my wrath to my originator. And when I am finished, I will leave you with regret.
Hello, my name is Michael Parkman, and this is The Good Life, What It Is and How to Achieve It. Today's topic is emotional resilience. This is what we need to combat the effects of anger, along with the effects of hate, envy, and fear. Now, those four concepts, those four emotions, are the most destructive of emotions. Now, but we need to step back just a second, because any emotion, anything that you do, in fact, any action that you take starts in your mind. And it may be a split second, but it does start in your mind. So, if you want to develop emotional resilience, you have to begin to train your mind. It is imperative that we look at everything from a mental standpoint. Everything about your body begins in your brain. Breathing, heartbeat, every physical function that you have begins in the brain. So, every action that you take begins thinking in the brain. So what we need to do is say, let me consider before I act. But first you have to learn that. You have to practice it. It is work. And one of the things you can do is decide that when you're at home, the little things that annoy you, right? Because we take annoyances and allow them to make us angry. And we give over to that anger feeling. Somebody dropped something. Somebody made noise. Oh, the anger builds up in you. The first thing that you have to do if you want to begin to develop emotional resiliency is recognize the feeling when it comes. And then make a conscious decision to not let anger take control of you. Because once anger gets control of you, as it said in the video, it becomes your master. You have a certain amount of temporary madness. Nothing matters except avenging a perceived injury. Now, let's talk about anger for just a second. Anger is defined by a need to avenge a perceived injury. And I use the word perceived because you can get angry at the thought of someone doing something to you. They may not have done it yet. They may not have it in their mind to do it. But again, your mind tells you that this person has bad intentions. So anger does not develop as a result of what someone else did. It is totally and absolutely a function of your mind. And if it's a function of your mind, just as you chose to get angry, you can choose not to. You have to begin to develop the ability to stop yourself. Stop your mind from taking you into these dangerous places, you need to be able to say, wait a minute, what's going on here, both internally and externally? Especially internally, because what's going on in your head influences what comes out of you. It's nothing that anyone does outside of you that makes you angry. It's your opinion of what is going on outside of you that makes you angry. So you need to be able and begin to change your opinions. If you adjust your opinions, where some little annoyance, someone made too much noise, kids didn't pick up after themselves, whatever annoyance it is, you have to develop the resiliency to say, you know what? It's okay. Now, you may have to correct your children when they're wrong, and that's perfectly acceptable. But you don't have to give in to anger. You don't have to let your emotions have the rule over you. When you hate something, when you develop that, you have now just assigned every bad quality that you can think to an object or a person. But again, you have decided to assign all of the qualities that you dislike to something, and so therefore you have developed a hate. You have decided. Right now, to the left of me, you can't see it, there's a couch. If I decide that I hate that couch, what did the couch do to bring forth that hate? The answer is nothing. It is an inanimate object. The hate comes from my thoughts. And it's the same way when you deal with anything else. It begins in your mind. We said, I think it was last week, as a man thinketh, so is he. So again, you have to train yourself to think in a different way. It is important that we begin to understand how to change our thinking. We talked about habits. The only way to replace a habit, to change a habit rather, is to replace it with a different habit. So therefore, recognize what your habit is. When your child makes too much noise, what's your habit? To yell, "Shut up!" Okay? Maybe you need to change your habit. Maybe you need to go see why the child is making so much noise. Maybe you can de-escalate the situation in a calm tone and tell the child that they need to tone down the noise and give them the reasons to, rather than the shout. We need to really develop the ability to think before we act. Back in the old days, we say you have to look before you leap. Think before you act. Understand before you do. We are so in tune with reactivity. Something happens, we immediately react to it, and the thought process doesn't come into play. We have to train ourselves to think. We have to hold back our emotions. Let reason take control. Because if reason is in control, emotions can only act in their due degree. You are going to have emotions. You can't help that, you're human. But you can control how long these emotions remain with you. As I said a few weeks ago, the state of equilibrium is not being under the influence of any of the passions. But when the passions erupt in their due degree, you're in a state of harmony. So yes, something's going to surprise you. Something's going to bring forth anger response. But at that point, you go, what's going on? Why do I feel this way? And if you can do that, that's the first step into not letting those emotions take control of you. Again, it starts in the mind. I'm going to say it over and over. As a man thinketh, so is he. Every action that you take starts in the mind. So therefore, train your mind to do something different than you've been doing. Train your mind to a new habit, a new way of approaching people, a new way of listening to people. Train your mind. It's important. One of the other emotions, strong emotions, is fear. We all have fear of certain situations, dark alleys, and we fear because we're anticipating something bad happen based upon where we are. Or we anticipate something bad happening because in a similar situation, something bad happened to someone else. So these feelings are somewhat natural. But again, as with anger, you have to dial back those feelings and look at a situation for what it is. What's really here? What do I really see? Is there a real danger, or is it a product of my imagination? Because we do suffer more in imagination than reality. And if you can tame your imagination and deal with what you actually see, what's actually there, an objective view, you will be much better off. Now, envy. Now, envy is a very different kind of emotion because you see something and you want it. You wish you had it. You look at something that a person has and you say, oh, I wish I had what they had. And that's fairly normal, except when it's gone beyond its right bounds. Because you want it, you envy it so bad, you either want to take it from them or you want to destroy it so they don't have it. You see a lot of that with young people, and one student is getting good grades and they're aspiring to go to college, and their peer groups is not on that same path. So because that peer group envies that person and they don't know how to handle that, they can't rejoice in that person's success. They want to attack that person. They want to drag them down, make them feel bad, using things like, oh, you forgot where you came from. And that especially comes on after you've made something of yourself. Envy is destructive for you, and it's destructive for your counterparts. Instead of envying someone, learn to rejoice for their success. And if they're successful, instead of you hating their success, look at what they did to achieve that success, and maybe you can emulate that. And you can grow together. But you have to change how you think. Because it's so very easy to say, they think they're better than me. And then you go down the road of anger and possibly hate. All because your mind told you, your imagination told you that they think they're better than you. They have never said it, but your imagination says that's how they are. And that perceived slight, that perceived injury brings forth anger. And when you approach that person, that anger exudes from you, and you get a negative feedback from the other person. And then you feel justified for your anger, when it's all simply in your imagination. In the Bible, in James 3, it talks about taming the tongue. The only way you can begin to tame the tongue is to change your thinking. Because, as I said several times, and I'm sure you're probably tired of hearing it, but repetition brings forth memory and acceptance. If you change your thinking, you change your life. Every action that you take begins in your mind. Your mind is a very powerful entity. Use it wisely. Begin to think in the proper way. Begin to think life. Begin to think the good life.